Yes, good morning to all professors and research scholar. Dr. Prajop sir has joined with us. Are you able to hear me?
Good morning, sir.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
good morning, Gawande sir. Good morning, Kadam sir. Yeah, shall
Hello.
we start?
Yes, sir.
Shall we start? Yeah,
Yes, sir. I
uh,
am online.
yeah,
Please
yeah.
let me
Sir,
know.
Sir, you can please on your video, sir, so that we can see you.
Sir,
Please.
unfortunately, my camera is not working right now.
Okay, okay.
Maybe can you just wait for a minute so that I bring my
Yeah,
another
yeah.
camera?
Of course, sir. No problem.
Yeah,
sir,
please wait. I'll bring.
Yes, yes.
Vijay sir,
Bola,
please
sir. Bola.
please give us introduction about the speaker.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Before that, we will give.
Yeah, hello, sir. Vijay
Yeah,
sir,
hello, sir.
can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are able
I
to.
hope I'm visible also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, good morning, sir.
Yeah. Good morning, sir.
Good
Please tell
morning.
me.
Welcome, Dr. Prajop, sir, for the Faculty Development Program at Veer Mata Jijabai Technological Institute, Mumbai, organized by Mechanical Engineering Department. I welcome to you, sir. We'll start the session with the brief introduction of our today's eminent speaker, Dr. Prajop, sir. Uh, shall I, sir?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Professor Prabhakaran, Dr. Prajop Prabhakaran received the BTech degree in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, Amrita University, Coimbatore in 2009, followed by MTech degree in Power Electronics from the same university in 2011. He received the PhD degree in Electrical Engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay in 2018. His doctoral research was focused on DC microgrids, and he has published 4 IEEE transactions and 5 IEEE international conferences from his research work. From July 2011 to June 2013, he worked as an assistant professor in Electrical and Electronics Engineering Department, Amrita School of Engineering, Coimbatore. From July 2013 to June 2018, he worked as a teaching assistant and a lab coordinator at the Applied Power Electronics Lab, IIT Bombay. After a brief stint with National Institute of Technology, Calicut, Kozhikode, As an ad hoc faculty during July-November 18, he joined the Transportation Solution Department, L&T Technological Services, Bangalore, where he worked for a year as a project lead for the research and development of powertrain and battery management system for the electric vehicles. On December 4, 2019, he joined National Institute of Technology, Karnataka, Surathkal, where he is currently an assistant professor in the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering. He mainly works in the field of electronics with focus on renewable energy, source-based system, microgrids, and electric vehicles. Dr. Projop is a reviewer for IEEE transactions on power electronics, industrial electronics, smart grid, and industrial application. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitations, and I welcome again you.
Yes, sir.
And
Thank you. Thank you.
please
Thank you for
start
the.
the session. Yes,
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. So for the introduction, yeah, I'll just share my screen. You can maybe please let me know once it's visible. Yes, sir. Please let me know if it is visible, if my screen is visible.
yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay. Yes. So I can start right now, sir.
Yeah, dear professor, sir is going to start the session. Hello,
Yes, sir. Yes.
hello.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So again, thank you, Vijay sir, for the introduction. I would also like to thank you for inviting me as a resource person for this FDP. It's always a pleasure and honor to be associated with one of the oldest institute in this country, that is VJTI. It's a pleasure to be a resource person for this FDP. I would also like to thank the other organizing committee members, the head, and the other members associated with this FDP. Thank you so much. Okay. Hello all. I am Dr. Prajo
thank you,
Prabhakaran.
sir.
Yeah. The topic of my presentation is on introduction to EV powertrain. So before I go into the details of this topic, I would like to tell you that this is something that I have learned, mainly from my. It was not from my PhD work. It was mainly from my experience that I had gained when I was working in L&T as a project lead, where my primary responsibility was, in the R&D aspects of EV powertrain and battery management systems. So we had a team of, some of the team of engineers and senior engineers, where I was assisting them in building an electric vehicle from scratch. So whatever I'm going to explain here is from the experience that I gained in L&T. So I would also like to thank L&T for allowing me to present some of the contents, mainly for the academic purpose. Okay, without much delay, let me go ahead with the presentation. So this will be the outline. I could see the brochure and the other speaker details. I think some of it already would have been covered. Nevertheless, I thought I will touch upon it. I'm mainly from an electrical background, and my specialization into power electronics, and I can see that the most of the audience are from the mechanical department. So what I have done here is, I have ensured that there is electrical part, but I have not gone into more detail. I'll just give you a brief outline of these things so that you get an idea what exactly from the electrical side is there in an electric vehicle. So as I said, the outline would have the introduction to EV, the EV trends, present and future scenario. I shall go into the powertrain with focus mainly into the electrical portion, and I'll explain the introduction and details. I shall also give a brief intro on EV batteries, then followed by the electric drives in all electric vehicles. And I shall also present, a methodology of how do we size the EV powertrain components, especially how do we size the electric motor, and how do you size the the inverter, the power converter that goes into that. And finally, I should conclude the talk with explaining some of the challenges associated with EV powertrain. Okay, now coming to the introduction to electric vehicles. Well, as you all are aware, electric vehicles are actually proposed as a solution to help increase, energy security, improve fuel economy, lower the fuel cost, and reduce emission. Today, everybody speaks about electric vehicles. The main thing it's become popular mainly because now compared to a conventional IC engine vehicle, electric vehicle is more efficient. Okay. Now there's always, whenever I've attended numerous conferences, I have I've also attended various talks, and there's always a question that arises. It's always said that electric vehicle is a green form of energy, meaning that it doesn't produce any emission. But electricity is actually generated from coal. Okay. Primarily coal in our country, but we also have other fossil fuels, well, diesel powered or natural gas powered, power station generating electricity. Okay. So then the question naturally comes: is electric vehicle green? No, I would not. I would say that electric vehicle is not completely green. No, there is emission, but the emission is not, in the vehicle side. The emission is mainly in the rural areas where the power is being generated. Okay, that is one aspect. So what I would like to say, with the penetration of EV, the urban pollution can be drastically reduced. Now, if you look, the emission is mainly from, around 30%. It's mainly from the transportation sector, which also includes, the pollution from the aeroplane. Okay, so it's very important that we reduce the emissions from the transportation sector, and that can be done through electric vehicle. Uh, if we use electric vehicle, definitely there is consumption of fossil fuel, but that it is that emission is mainly in the rural areas where these power plants are located. So the urban pollution can be drastically reduced. And the other advantage with the electric vehicle is the well-to-wheel efficiency is much better than the IC engine vehicles. Okay. When I say well-to-wheel efficiency, the efficiency, the amount of the power energy consumed, directly from the mining the fossil fuels, to refining it, and then back to the, to the vehicle. Okay. And that efficiency is much better for electric vehicles. So if the amount of the fossil fuel consumed by IC engine vehicles is much higher, in other words, compared to the electric. Now, one of the critical aspects with the electric vehicle is the energy sources. Now, if you look into for a conventional IC engine vehicle, the energy source is obviously the fossil fuel, the petrol, gasoline, or the diesel. But for electric vehicle, the sources could be batteries, fuel cells, ultra capacitors, renewable energy sources, or hybrid storage. Okay. Now, among all these, batteries are preferred mainly because they are reliable, economical, compact, and matured. Okay. There is, fuel cells are also gaining popularity, but the fuel cell technology requires hydrogen, which is not easy to handle. Okay, there is some safety issues, and fuel cell technology is also costly. So we also have fuel cell commercial vehicles available today, but not as popular as battery powered vehicles. Battery powered vehicles are, they are more reliable, very economical, compact. Okay, because of that, batteries are preferably used. Renewable energy cannot be used mainly because of its no, not they are not completely dispatchable, so they are not used. But they are, it can be used as a supporting source, but not as a completely a main source. So this slide here shows, the density, power and energy density of the various sources. Okay, I don't have the gasoline or the petrol here, but the petrols, the power or energy density is quite high. Okay, when I say power and energy density, the amount of the power it can give per unit weight of the energy source, or for energy density is amount of energy it can deliver per unit weight for the of the for the source, for the energy source. Now, if you look carefully among the various sources, the batteries lie somewhere here. Okay, and it can be seen that the power density is very poor. Okay, even though the energy density is sufficiently good enough, but the power density is very poor. In other words, the amount of weight required for the battery, okay, to for a vehicle application, that is very high compared to fossil fuels. Okay, where the desired specification for any vehicle is somewhere in this region, but none of these sources meet there, and that has been one of the main challenges. In fact, now a lot of research is going on in the electrochemical energy sources, and it's a hot research topic, mainly because for vehicle application, the desired specification should be somewhere here. But currently the batteries are here. Okay. Okay, just a brief outline into the histories of electric vehicles. Well, electric vehicle is not a new concept. It's very old. In fact, the first vehicle, which was being developed was an electric vehicle. And the concept is almost 200 years old. Way back in 1830s, the concept was developed where, there were batteries, a primitive version of lead acid batteries and DC motors were extensively used those days. But it was not commercial. But the commercialization it began, post 1880s. Okay, and if you see early 1990s, that is when the electric vehicles were more popular. But that was also the time where the IC engine vehicles were also existing side by side. Okay, but IC engine vehicles were very costly. And they were not that user friendly like an electric vehicle. IC engine vehicles those days, they required hand crank, and it was not a self-starting vehicle. Okay, and even the fossil fuels were not that readily available those days, so it was a very costly thing. So the amount of electric vehicle used, or amount of EVs were much higher than the gasoline powered vehicles during this period. Okay. Further, it was seen that the electric vehicle didn't suffer from the following issues: no need for changing gears, less noise, no unpleasant exhaust, and and there is no high fuel cost. But things started changing, from 1910 to 1935. The things really changed when Henry Ford mass-produced Model T, okay, which is considered the affordable gasoline-powered car. Okay, and that dealt a blow to the electric car. Further, the cost of gasoline also, or the fossil fuels, are also coming down because we had oil discovery in various locations throughout the world during this period. Texas crude oil was also discovered, somewhere close to that period in 1930s. So the cost of the fossil fuel was coming very down. And in 1912, it was seen that the cost of gasoline powered car was, or petrol powered car was around $650 compared to an electric car, which was around double the cost of it. Okay. And also during the same period, Charles Kettering, he invented electric starter, and it was commercialized by 1920s. So during 1920s, most of the vehicles that were coming out, the gasoline powered vehicles, they had the self-starting or electric starters. Okay, an electric starter made it easier for women and elderly people to drive. So that was in this period, you could have seen that the amount of gasoline powered vehicles were much higher than the electric vehicles. But if you look into this period, 1935 to 1970s, that is a period where it was said that EVs had entered some sort of a dark age where EVs were not very rarely used. It was not that EVs were not produced at all. EVs were produced, but mainly for demonstration purpose. So it was a set demonstration vehicles, and very little technological advancements in electric vehicle. And it was also considered as a honeymoon period for the petrol or the diesel powered vehicles, mainly because a lot of research was going on in IC engines. IC engine performance were greatly improved, and this was the period. And people never thought, the fossil fuel would get exhausted in certain part in some time. And that is when in 1970s, people started worrying about this, mainly because the oil prices were increasing. There was Gulf War taking place, and people realized that fossil fuel is not going to stay for a long period. Okay, and that was also the period where people realized there was an environmental impact because of these fossil fuels. Okay, and slowly the work on electric vehicles were gaining momentum. Now, if you ask the question why electric vehicles were not that popular in 1935 to 1970s, it was not because of the motor technology. It was mainly because of the electronics. The power electronics was not that developed, in these periods. Okay, you never had a compact electric and the electronic drives. Okay, but that changed in this period, 1970 to 2010. 1970 to 2010 was a period where there was a lot of research going on into the power electronics, where it was proved that the drive requirement, or the electronic requirement for driving the motors, that size would be greatly reduced. Okay, and things started gaining momentum post 90s, where you had Toyota Prius, in 1997 introducing its hybrid vehicle, And we also had usage of lithium ion, which completely changed the equation in the favor of electric vehicles. And today we have numerous players working on electric vehicles. In fact, just recently I read an article where General Motors have come up with a target saying that post 2030 they are not going to manufacture any gasoline or diesel powered petrol or diesel powered vehicles. They are only going to manufacture electric vehicles. Okay. Okay, we'll look into the EV trends just to show you the importance of the electric vehicle. If you look into the the present EV outlook, most of the countries, it's mainly dominated by China and European markets. You have the EV penetration increasing gradually. India is now nowhere in this chart, but very soon India would catch up because there is again a lot of plans for electrifying all the vehicles in India. Okay, if you look at the time to sell a million electric vehicles, now that time is reducing drastically. The first million, from if you start from 2011, it took a lot of time. Okay, but later on after that, to sell a million of electric vehicles, the time required was around less than 6 months. Now, because of this COVID situation, that has been slightly increased, but otherwise, this it is expected the time to sell a million electric vehicle would drastically reduce. And this is the EV future scenario where various governments throughout the world have come up with policies to promote electric vehicle. You have countries like China, you have European countries, even South American countries trying to promote electric vehicles. You have various policies like EV 30 at 30, where the various governments throughout the world have set target that by 2030 the penetration should be by this much amount. And even not only the government, but also the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, they have also announced various plans, which indicates that that the future is mainly towards electric vehicles. If you look, the some of the well-known OEMs throughout the world, you have Fiat, where they have said that they're going to phase out all the diesel vehicles by 2022. Okay, Volvo has already stopped developing diesel engine vehicles. Even if you look in the Indian scenario, you have Maruti, where they have almost stopped developing diesel vehicles. It's mainly petrol vehicles. Okay, so even the OEMs have said, and as I said, General Motors have said that by 2035 they're only going to produce electric vehicles. That's the target. Okay, the electric vehicle in India. Well, as I said, there are a lot of government initiatives where recent initiative being from one of the initiatives from National E-Mobility Program, where by 2030 around 30% of the vehicle needs to be electrified, which has been said by the government of India. And by 2020, Government of India has also allowed sale and registration of electric vehicles without batteries. Okay, which is more likely to push for battery swapping, which I will explain later on. Okay. And even if you look into the manufacturers of EV in India, it is mainly done by Mahindra, where there was a company called Reva, where they started selling electric vehicle in 90s, and then Mahindra took over it, and they have promoted electric vehicle. We also had a lot of startups recently. One startup is Aether Energy, which is based in Bangalore, where they have unveiled their electric scooter in 2016. I was fortunate enough to ride this, and I can say that the performance of this vehicle was much better than the conventional scooty that we have. Okay. And again, in 2016, we had Ashok Leyland, where they tried to launch 100% Indian-made electric bus. Electric bus. We also had Tata Motors, okay, unveiling its hydrogen-based fuel cell bus in Pune facility. I think Tata Motors also collaborated with IIT Bombay and I think ISRO also. I'm not sure where they had that. Okay, and even now charging stations are also coming up for promoting the electric vehicles. So these are the different players, and we have starting from bicycles to scooters to motorcycles and rickshaws. Okay, we have all these segments, different companies are there who are working. In India, it is mainly, from Indian market, it is mainly into rickshaws, where, Mahindra has played some important role. Even I can see today in rural areas, I have seen electric rickshaws. And it is anticipated that would increase as time goes by. Yes, in four-wheelers, we have not only the Indian we have the other foreign companies as well. Recently, we had companies like MG, which is originally owned by British, but right now by Chinese. And they are also selling electric car. Okay, we also have from Benz. There is an electric car which is being sold in India. We have Hyundai Motors has Hyundai Kona. They have also sold. No, they are also selling their electric cars. Buses, well, there are few. As I said, Ashok Leyland has launched, and Tata Motors is also working towards it. If you look into off-highway vehicles, unfortunately, there is no Indian OEM which is working on off-highway vehicles. When I say off-highway vehicles, they are mainly construction vehicles, cranes, okay, JCBs, these kind of vehicles, where some companies like Komatsu, which is a Japanese OEM, they are extensively have invested trying to electrify their off-highway vehicles. You also have a Chinese company called XCMG. I was fortunate enough to interact with one of their engineers, where I could come to know that there is a very huge plan to electrify the off-highway vehicles in China. So in future, you can see that even in India, we can have some players working on it. Okay, now we'll go into the main topic, which is the powertrain. As you all may be knowing, what is a powertrain? It is the path of power flow from the source to wheel. Is a powertrain. Okay, and depending upon the type of the source, it is classified into two categories. One, you have the mechanical powertrain, which is IC engine based. Okay, and the other one is electric powertrain. The electric powertrain can be of a different type based on the sources. If it is battery, then it is a battery electric vehicle, or sometimes called pure electric vehicle. Fuel cell vehicles, where you have fuel cell, this is also classified, sometimes called pure electric vehicle. Then you have hybrid, where you have two or more energy sources. Mainly, one of the in hybrid vehicles today, we say when one of the sources is an IC engine. Now, based on the configuration of this powertrain, they are again further classified into different categories, namely micro hybrid, mild hybrid, full hybrid, and plug-in hybrid. Okay. Yeah. Now, if look into the functionalities of EV powertrain, one big advantage with EV powertrain is that it supports bidirectional power flow. Now, what does that mean? It means that you can power from say battery to the to the wheels, and even other way around, from wheels to the battery. That is also possible. Now, that is something which is not possible with the IC engine based vehicles, but that is feasible with electric vehicles. Okay. Yeah, moving ahead. So this is the architecture of the three variants which I have discussed. One is the conventional one, which is IC engine based. The other one is pure EV, which could be either battery operated or fuel cell operated. And we also have hybrid EV, where one of the sources is either battery or fuel cell, or the other one is the with the fossil fuels with IC engines. Okay. Yeah, now if you look at the conventional IC engine, there are two types, as you all know, petrol and diesel engines. You all know that the petrol engine works on spark ignited system, whereas the diesel is compressed ignited systems. Now, if you look into the efficiency, okay, this is tank to wheel efficiency. The primary, the efficiency of the engine is somewhere close to 16 to 30%. Okay. Which the losses are the engine losses, and there could also be losses because of the standby, even when the engine is running but the vehicle is not moving. Then you also have the losses in the drive line. Okay, that is the transmission network, and the driveline losses, the best it is around 3%, and the wheels, if you see, it's around 13 to 27%. Okay, that's the total tank to wheel efficiency. And even at the wheels, you have some losses in the form of drag, rolling resistance, and braking. Okay, this is for a conventional IC engine vehicle. Now let's look into hybrid vehicle. I'll also show you the similar chart for pure EV. As you all know, hybrid vehicle, as I explained later before, that hybrid vehicle is powered by IC engine as well as an electric motor. Okay. Now, depending upon the size of this motor, it is further classified into various categories. One is a micro hybrid. Okay. Now, in micro hybrid, the size of the electric motor is less than 5 kilowatts. Okay, and the fuel saving is estimated to be around 10%. Okay. Now, what exactly is micro hybrid? In micro hybrid, you have, electric motor, a small electric motor, which is maybe coupled to the engine through a belt drive. Okay, not it could be coupled to the through an integrator starter generator. Okay, so that is the electric machine which is coupled through the through the IC engine, and here the motor assists the engine in starting and stopping. Okay, so only for that purpose. Okay, and there is a moderate level of regenerative braking, and the battery that is used is generally 12, 24 or 48 volts. Okay, nowadays we have the battery lithium ion which is used, but you can also have lead acid. Now, one best example could be Maruti Ciaz, even though they don't claim it to be under micro hybrid, but this is what I anticipate, that it is a micro hybrid. They actually sell it, by saying that smart hybrid. I do not know if you have seen all the Nexa powered Nexa vehicles from Maruti, like Ciaz and Baleno. They all are coming with smart hybrid. Then it's basically micro hybrid. And if some of you have driven these vehicles, you would have realized that when you are in a traffic, in a signal, if you just press the clutch, automatically vehicle turns off, and the moment you slightly release the clutch, the vehicle turns on. Okay, so that is micro hybrid, whereas some fuel saving is done, but not substantial. Then next one is mild hybrid, where it is very similar to micro hybrid, but here the motor is directly coupled in the shaft, to that of the IC engine. That is what I got to know. Okay, and the motor rating or the is somewhere 7 to 15 kilowatt. Here, apart from the start and stop, it also there is a lot of regenerative braking available here, and the to a certain extent the motor also assists the IC engine when it is driving. The example could be Honda Accord hybrid and BMW 7 Series hybrid. This is one example for mild hybrid. Full hybrid is when the size of the motor is very large, more than 30 kilowatt, and the fuel saving is around close to 40%. Now here the battery is the size is very large. Its voltage is also more. It's around greater than 200 volts. You don't have the 48 volts motor no more in a full hybrid. Okay, and some full hybrid combination can also be operated in pure EV combination, meaning that even without IC engine it can still operate. Okay, and there are again different types in that full hybrid. You have series parallel and complex hybrid. The merit here is that low emission, no doubt, because you're saving a lot of fuel. If you see the mileage, for 1 liter of petrol, maybe you can get a mileage close to 100 kilometers. That is the mileage. So it is commercially available. The problem is managing these multiple sources. It's not that an easy task, because I've seen it when I was working in L&T, that managing hybrid vehicles, designing the control system for hybrid vehicles it's complex, and there's also high cost, but still there is dependence on crude oil. That is another issue. And Toyota Prius, Toyota vehicles are very popular for hybrid segment, and you also have I think Chevrolet also had its hybrid vehicles. I'm not sure if it's still today being used, but Toyota vehicles are still there. Okay. And from Kia Motors, you have Kia Optima Hybrid, which is again fully hybrid. Okay, now let's see where this hybrid technology is coming into. How is it saving the conventional IC engines losses? If you look into the micro hybrid, it basically saves the standby losses 8%. You have the IC engine vehicle which has a standby losses around 8%. So micro hybrid tries to reduce that, maybe to reduce it to say 4 or 5%. Okay. Now, if you look into the mild hybrid, apart from saving a little bit of standby losses, it also tries to save the braking losses through regenerative braking. Now, full hybrid basically tries to reduce the engine losses. Now, in full hybrid, you have a region where the IC engine operates at a high efficiency. Okay, so in full hybrid, how it is operated is you always try to operate IC engine in maximum efficiency range. In the other engines, it's mainly the motor which takes over. Okay. So there are different, ways of how you manage, okay, which I'm not going to explain here, but just want to tell you how these hybrid technology, how they are trying to reduce the various losses. Okay, I'll not explain these in detail. I think some of the speakers would have already explained, You all know that in full hybrid, there is a generator and the generator is then there is some battery here and a power electronic converter here. Okay, and then you can have in a power flow in a series manner. Okay, the problem here is the size of the IC engine required and the size of the electric motor required is very high. Okay, here you have the motor, so the motor required is very high. That is the drawback with series hybrid. But today we have various variant of series hybrid, like say a range extender. In range extender, what we do is it's a pure EV where but we have this small IC engine, which is connected to a generator, and it is then charging the battery. Okay, for charging the battery. Okay. Otherwise, in conventional series hybrid, the IC engine size is also very large. Next, you have parallel hybrid, where both both the batteries and IC engines are operating in parallel, and they are connected to the transmission network. Complex hybrid, where you can have the complex combination of these two. Okay. So if you look into today's hybrid vehicle, mostly they are in this category, complex hybrid vehicles. Okay, then coming to plug-in hybrid, well, we have seen that in case of series hybrid, maybe you can charge the batteries through the IC engines. Okay, but if you want to reduce the size of the engine, you can also have plug-in hybrid, where you can have a feature to charge the batteries by connecting it to a plug outlet. Okay, now in plug-in hybrid, it is very similar to the conventional hybrid, but only thing is in plug-in hybrid, the size of the batteries is also a bit larger. Okay, so the advantage of plug-in hybrid is one thing, you can charge it, even at your home, and the other advantage is the size of the battery is sufficiently large. So for some condition, you can also operate it like a pure EV. If you see certain commercially available plug-in hybrids, they will say with pure battery alone, maybe it can drive up to 50 kilometers or 60 kilometers. And you can also operate it like a pure IC engine vehicle, where it may be able to operate in particular mileage. Okay, or with the combination, you can achieve much higher. Okay. Now, this charging is also part of electric vehicle powertrain. So if you see that there could be two types of charging. One is an onboard charging, where the charger is inside the vehicle. Okay, it's on board. Okay, and in that case, we connect it to an AC outlet, and this onboard charger, what it does is it converts that AC to an appropriate DC and charges the battery. Okay, but problem with onboard is the onboard charger, their rating is somewhere around 3.3 kilowatts to maximum around 11 to 12 kilowatts. Today, I think some of the companies are even making up to 16 kilowatts, but that's recent. Whatever is being commercialized, it is up to 10 to close to 12 kilowatts. With that rating of this onboard charger, charging this battery would take around 7 to 8 hours. Okay, so that's the problem with onboard charger. But advantages being an onboard, you can even plug it to your house and charge these batteries. Now, to do fast charging, you need to have charging station which directly produces DC. Okay, and it is directly connected to the battery terminal. Okay, so that is the advantage here is you can charge the battery at a much higher power levels, more preferably generally around 50 kilowatts and above. Okay, to charge these batteries, so it can be charged say in half an hour, where you can achieve from 0% charge to from around 10% charge to 80% charge in around half an hour. There are, based on the amount of power that it goes, there are different levels, and these are the plug outlets. What I want to say from this slide is, that just like how in India we have some plug outlet, if you go to abroad, say in European countries, some countries have different plug outlet. You say them type A, type B, type C. So same thing here in electric vehicles. There are different standards based on the country. For example, you have J1772, which is mainly popular in US and European markets. Okay, you have GBT standard, which is popular in Chinese. You have CHAdeMO, which is popular in in Japanese. Most of the Japanese OEM have that kind of plug outlet. Okay, in India we also have Bharat charging standards, which is still I think under development. So that is something which I wanted to highlight from this slide. Okay, here again, I just wanted to show you the different, charging plug outlets, okay, based on the standards. And you will be noticing that, apart from the phase and neutral, you may have other terminals, mainly for the communication, mainly because you see the vehicles, every electric vehicle use different batteries. Now, some vehicles use a battery of, say, around 200 volts. Today, you have some vehicles using batteries of 400 volts. So when you go to the charging station, the station should identify the type of the battery and so on. So you have some sort of communication signal, or handshaking communication taking place between the onboard charger or between the vehicle and the charging station. And that's why you have so many other plug points. Now, if you look into the onboard charger, that is also evolving. I just thought to highlight this just so that you all become familiar with it. See, onboard charger can operate in various modes. The conventional is grid to vehicle mode. When I say grid is a utility. Okay, that is a plug point. Okay, where you have the utility, like for example, no, the best supplying the electricity which comes to your home. Okay, in here we have MESCOM supplies. So that is the grid utility. From that to the vehicle, that is the conventional way in which onboard charger operates. You can also have vehicle to grid mode. Okay, now today people are working wherein you can, with the electric vehicle, you can also you can supply cell power to the utility grid. Now this, in certain countries, it is already commercialized, where, the utility says that if you power it during the peak time, if you supply me power during peak time, I shall pay you. So even the vehicle owner can, make money by, if he's not using his vehicle, he can, export some amount of power to the grid. Okay, that is one mode. If the penetration of electric vehicle increases, then, in a country like India, where you may have a scenario where you're in some rural location and there are no charging station by. Okay, so then the question arises: how do you charge the vehicle? Well, fortunately for electric vehicles, you can have a scenario where electric vehicle can be charged by another electric vehicle. Okay, so that is called vehicle to vehicle charging. Okay, vehicle to vehicle charging. So that is also onboard charger. Today we are trying to develop. I mean, people are trying to work. Even I am also working on it, where, we can charge the vehicle from another vehicle. Okay, with the same onboard charger. And here, in some, especially in South, we face the issue of, grid failure. We have power cuts here, so people invest on inverters. Okay, I know in Mumbai you don't have that issue, but in other cities we do have this issue where people buy inverters because the grid is not reliable always. Okay, so if you buy electric vehicle, you need not buy inverters, because in electric vehicle the battery itself is so huge that is enough to even power 2 or 3 homes. Okay, so can the electric vehicle be used, to be connected to your home when your grid fails? The answer is yes. Okay, you can do that. Okay, you can do that by using the same power converter without buying any additional hardware. Okay, so today the work on the charger is on these fronts, where you have, vehicle to grid, vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to home, or vehicle to load. Vehicle to load meaning is, people, I do not know in India, but in abroad, in US, generally there's a trend that people go out for trekking, and they generally carry a Honda generator with them. Okay, now obviously if your vehicle is electric, you need not carry a Honda generator. You can power your, loads when you go for trekking. When you set up a tent, you can power the loads through your electric vehicle itself. Okay, that's called vehicle to load or vehicle to home mode. Okay, this slide here shows the degree of hybridization which I had discussed. Micro hybrid only for start and stop, mild hybrid apart from start and stop. You also have regenerative and to a certain extent assisting the IC engine. Full hybrid, it can drive at times using only the electric motor, and you can also have a provision where you can also drive it through the IC engine. Plug-in hybrid, the same as full hybrid. Only thing is you have batteries which can be charged from wall outlets. Okay, this shows, as I said, whenever we talk about electric vehicle, if you want to make a fair-to-fair, apple-to-apple comparison, it is better that you see the well-to-wheel efficiency. For IC engine vehicle, the well-to-wheel efficiency for a best diesel-powered car is somewhere close to 17%. Whereas for gasoline, it is around 14%. Whereas if you look into pure EV, you have the losses, mainly in this side. That is, from the utility, because you need to transport the fuel, to a remote location. But this is under the worst case. Even in the grid side, you have a lot of research going on in renewable energy. Okay, today grids, in India also you have various solar power plants, mainly operated by Adani and other corporates, where they are trying to penetrate more solar. In that case, the amount of fossil fuel used even in the grid would reduce. Now here, this efficiency calculation is done assuming that we use coal power plant. And nowadays government's policy is such that where the coal they are trying to reduce drastically, and promotion is given to natural gas and nuclear and other sources. So no, in future you can see that this efficiency will not be 40%; it will be much higher. Okay. Now, if you look into the charger, its efficiency around 85%, and motor it's around 80%. Okay. And if you look into the well-to-wheel efficiency for electric vehicle, it is 27%, which is 10% higher than the conventional IC engine vehicles. Okay. Even for hybrid, it is much higher. It is not as high as 27%, but somewhere close to 21%. Even for fuel cell vehicles, it's somewhere close to 27%. Okay. Okay. Now this slide here, shows the complete architecture of a pure electric vehicle. Okay. If you look in the architecture wise, you have, the onboard charger. Then you have the batteries, which is assisted by the battery management unit. Then you have the drive, okay, which is the main powertrain part, which has the inverter, which has the motor, okay, and yes, then the gear part, okay. So if you look into the EV powertrains, these are the main three components. You have the EV batteries, okay, also which consist of the battery management system. Then you have the electric drive. In electric drive, you have the two parts. One is the electronics part, which is the power electronic part, which is basically power converter, okay, because motor operates on AC, but the batteries are DC, okay. So that's why we need to have some sort of a conversion, and that's done with power electronics. Okay. Then motors, you have various motors. Conventionally, it was used the conventional brushed DC motor, but today we have permanent magnet motors, brushless DC motors, reluctance motors, and so on. So I'll just explain of these components in a very brief manner. First, coming to the batteries. Okay, the batteries, these three are the main technology that was used. Initially, it was lead acid. Now it is very cheap, high recycling rate, very easily available. But problem is poor density, meaning the weight or the volume required for lead acid is very high. Okay, and also another problem with lead acid is its poor life. Okay, it doesn't stay, it's around 3 to 5 years, not beyond that. And there are also environmental problems because of lead. And another problem with lead acid battery is high self discharge rate. Now, what is this self discharge rate? Self discharge rate is even though you don't use the batteries, if you leave it as it is, you after a month, if you see the charge has gone down. This would have happened with you in the conventional vehicle where we use a 12-volt lead acid batteries. If you don't use it for a long period, the battery would die down. It's because of the self discharge rate. Okay. Then there was another variant which was used in 90s, which was nickel metal hydride. Okay, nickel metal hydride had much better advantage, was much better than lead acid. Okay, it was its energy and power density was much better. It was used by Toyota Prius, okay, in their early version. It was actually a modification of nickel cadmium batteries. Now, what problem with the nickel metal hydride is again the self discharge rate is still there. Okay, and it also suffers from something called memory effect. Means once you charge it and then you discharge it, and if you try charging it again, it doesn't charge back to the original capacity. Okay, there is some sort of degradation. Okay, and that is one of the major drawback of nickel metal hydride, and that is the reason why it didn't become popular. Okay, the most recently used technology is in battery technology is lithium ion. Okay, it was actually invented by a professor called John Goodenough and his team. Okay, it was actually invented, I think, in 80s, but commercialized by Sony. Okay, mainly for the consumer electronic products. Okay, the advantage was high energy density and power density. It's very compact compared to the other. That is the amount of lead acid battery required. The weight, if you try comparing it, the lithium ion is very less. Okay, the weight of lithium ion is very less compared to the lead acid or nickel metal hydride. Okay, and it has got low self discharge rate. That is the most important advantage here. That is, even if you leave the lead battery, it would discharge, but not as high as lead acid or nickel metal hydride. It doesn't have any memory effect, and highly efficient. Okay. Though it was used in consumer electronic products in 90s, it became, after 2000, most of the people, electric vehicle manufacturers started adopting lithium ion for their vehicles. Problem with lithium ion is it's not easily available. Lithium is something that very few countries mine. Some countries like you have some African countries, South American countries, and China. And even in Africa and South America, Chinese have leased these lands to mine these lithium. So it is more China dependent lithium. That is one major drawback. Okay. Low recycle value. Nobody is ready to buy a used lithium ion batteries. Okay. Today people will buy a used lead acid, but nobody buys a used lithium ion batteries. So disposing these lithium ion is also another major issue. There's also safety and cost concerns. You would have all read newspaper articles saying that lithium can explode. That is the reason why even in flight they don't allow in in the baggage. Okay. So these are some of the drawbacks with lithium ion batteries. There are different variants. Among all the variants, lithium iron phosphate is popular, but you also have modern variants like lithium titanate, which is which also supports fast charging. Okay. So this chart here shows the usage of battery technology, and it can be seen that post 2000 it's always been lithium ion. Now lithium, there are other battery technology as well. You have solid ion and potassium ion, but no, they are not popular mainly because of its poor power and energy density. Lithium sulfur battery has shown a lot of potential, mainly because it provides its specific density is much better. It's around 2,600 watt-hour per kg, which is much higher. No, that is theoretically, which is much higher than the conventional lithium ion, which is around somewhere around 200 to 300 watt-hour per kg. Okay. Another thing is sulfur is cheap and non-toxic. So sulfur is extensively used in lithium sulfur batteries. Okay. Then another one is solid state batteries, where instead of lithium electrolyte, we use solid electrolyte. So that way, it is more safe, more tolerant to high temperature, and it also allows fast charging. So a lot of importance is given to the battery technology. In future, you can see that different type of battery technology coming up for electric vehicles. Another trend in electric vehicle is the battery swap. People, Indian government is also promoting that, and I think in fleet vehicles, that is this Ola and Uber, they are actually been trying this out. I'm not sure how successful it has become. I think in Maharashtra itself that is being tried out. Okay. Where you don't charge the batteries, instead you swap the batteries, where the battery can be removed, you put a new battery, and somebody else would charge it, and he would sell that to somebody else. So that is a popular way where the EV could become popular. This photo is taken from the Google, where we can see that Honda has done that, okay, through battery swapping. Yes, a battery also requires battery management, mainly because lithium ion is very dangerous. If you try to violate its safe operating region, it can explode. Okay, so you need to have an automated system which monitors the battery and ensures that it always operates within its operating limits. And that automated system is called battery management system. BMS is also there in our cell phone, but a similar kind of stuff is required in an electric vehicle. Okay, so a lot of importance is given here also. And here even we have mechanical engineers working a lot on battery packaging and battery and thermal management of these batteries. So here I want to just show you that in BMS, one of the important component is the mechanical development, where you have the thermal management and designing the enclosure. When I was in L&T, we could see that these mechanical team, they used to do a lot of CFD simulations and other kind of stuffs, where to design this battery enclosure and ensure that the temperature in this enclosure does not go beyond a particular value. Okay. So this slide here shows the different type of cells that is being used. Okay, you have prismatic or pouch type cells. Then we also have 18650 cells, which is going into the vehicles. So this is just to show you how what are the batteries and how does it look like. And here it shows the battery packaging. It is generally packaged and placed. Mostly it is placed just below the driver. Okay, mainly to have a center of gravity very close to Earth. And even during crash, the impact is either in the front side or the back side. The chances of here the impact is less. That's the reason you will see that in most of the vehicles you have the batteries placed just below the driver's seat. Okay, but it's not compulsory. If you see Mahindra, they have kept their batteries in the behind, in the back boot. Okay, so it all depends. This is another picture here. Okay, let's go into the motor drive, where I will again not go into the detailed technical, but give you an overview what all is the motor drive options in an electric vehicle. If you look, one main reason why vehicle became okay, I think it's 12:50. So, sir, I think the time is still one o'clock, right, Vijay sir?
Yes, sir. 1:15 till you can continue till 1:15.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, yeah. Now, continuing ahead. So, participants, if you have any questions, please, you can post it in chat box. Okay, I'll try to answer your questions at the end. Okay, now coming to the motor technology. See, one of the reasons why EV became very popular is because motor's performance is far superior than an IC engine's performance. I do not know if you know it. The amount of component that goes into the motor is very less, compared to an IC engine. The amount of screws that is required, and screws and nuts required for IC engine is substantially high for an IC engine. So that is one of the reasons why electric vehicle became very popular, because motor's performance is very superior compared to a conventional IC engine. Namely because a motor can support high torque and power density. The size of the motors, today's motors, are very compact. Its region for which it can operate efficiently, that region is very wide. In IC engine, as you may be aware, that region is not that wide, it is narrow. Okay. Another thing is motor can operate at very high speeds. Okay, that may not be possible with, I'm not sure it's possible with IC engines, and that is one of the reasons why the gear requirement for motor driven vehicles is less. In fact, most of the electric vehicle are they don't have any gear. Okay, or if you look, there is only fixed gear with a differential is anyway required, but you would have some sort of a fixed gear. Okay, and it is capable to operate with constant power engine, which I'll explain a little later on, and high torque at starting. This is something this motor has. This is something which IC engine lacks. IC engine doesn't give high torque during starting, whereas motor can support high starting torque. Okay, and like IC engine, motor can support intermittent overload capability. High reliability and robustness is there, and acceptable cost. And that is one of the reasons where electric vehicle is becoming very popular. And as I discussed, in future you can see, for example, General Motors, they said that they will stop all their IC engine vehicles. They'll only produce EV vehicles. So now you can see the amount of I do not know what the people say that the mechanical engineering may not be there, but I would not agree to it, because you still have any mechanical engineering required in a vehicle. Obviously, the demand for the power electronics and the electric engineers would increase. But if you have, this is something which I realized when I was working in L&T. If you have a skill where you need not know in detail, but if you know some basics of electronics and some part of the electrical as a mechanical engineer, it's a very big plus into the industry. So that is what is required in today's times, where we need to update. It's not only for the mechanical engineers, even for the electrical engineers, we need to update with some of the recent trends and and the concepts. Okay, now continuing ahead. So if you look into the characteristics for a motor, it can operate in, if you see the torque speed characteristics, in some regions it operates in constant torque, and in some regions, as shown in the green, it operates in constant power. And this is the region as shown in yellow, where the motor operates in high efficient range. Okay. Now, if you look into the load in vehicles, this is something you all may be knowing. If you look into the load on a vehicle, this is the characteristics from the motor. Let's see the characteristics from the load perspective. If you see the load characteristics, you have the mainly three types of loads. One is the rolling resistance, because of the frictional resistance. Then you have the climbing resistance, because of you want to climb it through a gradient. Then you have the aerodynamic drag, because of the aero drag. So you have, these are the loads mainly acting. And apart from that, the electric vehicle should also be rated to meet the initial acceleration. Initial acceleration meaning that the vehicle, they would say that it should reach 0 to 100 km/h in this many seconds. So to meet that also. Okay. So your motor characteristics should be able to meet these total characteristics. And if you look carefully, the climbing resistance and rolling resistance for certain speeds, it's almost constant, though later on it can increase. And aerodynamic drag is proportional to square of the velocity. Okay, and the total resistance is here. Now, what should be the characteristics of an EV motor? How should the characteristics be? Or in other words, let me put the question this way. What should be the ratio of constant torque to constant power region? Okay. Now, if you look at the motor characteristics, no, that is, you have some region where the torque, this is the torque versus speed characteristics. So for some region, you have constant torque. And in other region, the torque reduces, but the power is constant. Okay. And torque is, power is torque into omega. So, power is constant in this region. VRM is actually the rated motor speed. VRV is the rated vehicle speed, and VR max is the maximum vehicle speed. Now, question is, when we try to bring in a motor, what should be this constant torque to constant power region? What should be the ratio of it? Now, to do that, it is seen that generally motor, they are rated. They have to be mainly rated to meet the initial acceleration, and acceleration is rate of change of velocity, where it is the net force by the mass. And if we try to integrate it, this is what we get here. Okay. Now, if we try to vary this VRM, we need to know what should be this VRM to yield minimum power for the motor. Okay. So in that case, if you try differentiating and equating it to 0, so this is what comes out to be. This will be the power. Okay. This formula is also sometimes we use to rate the motor. Okay. So it can be seen. Now the objective is what should be this VRM now such a way that the power rating of the motor is minimum. To do that, you just differentiate this and equate it to 0. Then we get that VRM is 0. VRM is actually here. Okay. The rated motor speed should be 0. In other words, the constant torque region should be 0, which is practically not possible. But what can we say is the constant torque region should be very, very small compared to the constant power region. Okay. That is what is concluded here, that whenever we select a motor, its constant torque region should be ideally 0, but minimum for minimizing the motor rating. And that is highlighted in this slide here. For example, you have a motor where the constant torque to constant power region is 1:1. Then the motor requirement for that vehicle is 110 kilowatts. Okay. On the other hand, if the ratio is 1:6, okay, then the motor requirement is only 62 kilowatts. So as when you try to design a motor, we need to ensure the constant torque region, that region is very, very small compared to the constant power region. Why? Because that way the power rating of the motor would drastically reduce. Now, if we look into the motors that is being used, conventionally it was brushed DC motor. When I say brushed DC motor, it is a conventional, normal, ordinary DC motor, which was actually used in Mumbai local long back. Nowadays, that is also being replaced. Okay. The problem with brushed DC motor is the advantage was it was easy to control. Okay, you need not have advanced electronic components to control DC motor. It can be easily controlled. Okay. But the problem is there is something called commutators and brushes which can wear out. Okay, and the life of the DC machine is poor, and the power density of the DC machine is poor, and that was the reason why brush DC machine it's not very popular and not suitable for electric vehicles. But it was popular before say 2010, mainly because it can be easily controlled. But from the electrical perspective, today we have various other choices. We have induction machines. Induction machines were also used. It was invented 100 years back, but still induction machine was not used for transportation purpose, mainly because induction motors were difficult to control. But in 1970s, there was something called Bosch came up with an algorithm called vector control, where we could control induction machine just like a DC machine. And from that point onwards, induction machine became very popular for traction application, especially for railway application. And today, even most of the electric train, they operate on induction machine rather than from DC machine. Even in Mumbai local, I think most of them operate in induction machine. Okay. Then you also, but problem with induction machine is efficiency is slightly poor, and the control, even though it is achieved, but it is a bit complex. It needs heavy technical skills to control an induction machine. Okay. Then you have permanent magnet machine, which is uses permanent magnets. I don't remember the magnet material name, but it's a rare earth magnets. Okay, and there are two categories: PMSM and BLDC. Permanent magnet machines, the advantage is its efficiency is very high, more than induction machines. So that's why if you see all the commercial vehicles, like they mainly use permanent magnet machines. But problem with permanent magnet machines is you need to use rare earth materials to make the permanent magnets. Now these materials, their performance varies with temperature. So at extreme temperature, their performance may not be very good. Okay, that is one problem. Other problem is, again, permanent magnets are China dependent. Okay, so we need to rely heavily on China to get these magnets. So that is one major problem with permanent magnet machines. But otherwise, the efficiency perspective, they are very good. Okay, and BLDC is another variant of permanent magnet motors, which can be very easily controlled. Even a BTech student, can control a BLDC motor. Okay, so it's very easy, and that's why BLDC motors are very popular for two-wheeler and three-wheeler applications. But problem with permanent magnet is that you need magnets, which is temperature dependent. Its performance is temperature dependent, and it's costly. And it's also, we need to rely on other countries like China for procuring these permanent magnets. Recently, a lot of research is going on reluctance motors. Reluctance motor is also, similar to induction motor. Okay, but it is based on principle of reluctance. Okay, the advantage here is you don't need to have any permanent magnets. But the problem with these reluctant motors is that they produce a lot of torque pulsations or vibrations. So that is why it was not popular. But today we have a lot of research going on in permanent magnet assisted reluctance motor, where we use small amount of permanent magnets to achieve very good performance. And these SRM machines are generally used in off-highway vehicles where noise is not a constraint. Noise and vibration is not a constraint. Okay. So to summarize on motors, I would say today it is mainly induction machines and permanent magnet machines, which are used in almost most of the commercial vehicles. If you have to compare these, the machines, I've given a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 means good rating, 1 means poor rating. So if you look carefully in this slide, DC motors, their efficiency is very poor, power density is very poor, the cost is okay, little bit better. Ease of control is something that the DC motors rank high, but otherwise other things are poor. But if you see the induction motors and permanent magnet motors, they have got a much better score than the DC motors. Switch reluctance motors, the only issue is torque, ripple, and noise. Okay, so that is very poor in this. Otherwise, it's a very easy to construct machine. Okay, I'll just give you an example. How do you size a motor? In practice, actually, in industry, we don't use these hand calculations. Rather, we rely on a lot of simulations, where we try to simulate the vehicle for different drivetrain and then size the motor. But if you want to explain it in a simple term, we'll see how it can be sized roughly. So here this is a slide where where I was working on this vehicle. This vehicle was actually it's an airport cart vehicle, where we got it from a customer from when I was working in L&T, where the idea was to electrify this vehicle. So it was originally run by petrol vehicle, but what we did is we removed all the IC engine parts and everything and replaced it with the batteries and the inverter and a BLDC motor. Now, if you want to very quickly size the motor, what we can be done is first of all, we should know all the vehicle parameters. Okay, you should know the mass, you should know the velocity, the acceleration constraints, the frontal area, and all other constants like drag coefficients, rolling resistance coefficient. All those factors should be known. Okay, the gear ratio. So here we used a fixed gear ratio. Okay, now how do you size a motor? This is a very simple way. It's not the way that is being done in the industry, but in a very simple way. The first thing that one needs to do is compute the tractive effort. That is the net force acting on the vehicle. One thing that is the first step that has to be done. The other step is to compute the torque on the wheel and motor. Compute the RPM of the wheel and motor, and compute the shaft power of the motor and scale it up by a safety factor. For example, first one is compute the tractive effort. The tractive efforts are, rolling resistance, climbing resistance, drag, and accelerating force. You compute all these forces for a given vehicle specification, add them up, that is the net force. Okay. Then you need to find out wheels angular velocity. That can be known by knowing the maximum speed. Now this is at a one particular point. See, these calculations are done at one particular point of your driving cycle. Okay, actually that is not the correct way, but this is one way you can do it. Maybe you can take the worst condition and do it, and we can get the the velocity of the maximum velocity of the vehicle, or at a particular velocity of the vehicle. We can find out what is the wheel RPM. Okay. We can also know the the wheel torque by knowing the gear ratio. We can select a particular gear ratio. We can find out the wheel torque, and once we know that, we can also find out the motor's angular velocity and motor RPM, and then we can find out the torque at the motor. Okay, again through gear ratio we can find out that. So here in vehicle torque, in wheel torque, it is actually net force into the radius of the wheel. Okay, net force is anyway computed into the radius of the wheel, and you can also find out the motor torque through the gear ratio. And once that is done, we can find out what is the motor power rating. You can also calculate the losses that is there, and you can find out the motor power rating. Or as a thumb rule, you can also use this formula which I had explained a few slides before, and that will also yield the similar results. Maybe you'll have to scale it up by a small for a safety factor, and it comes out to be 20 kilowatt. And that's what we did it. We used a 20 kilowatt motor, and we used BLDC mainly because it was a cart vehicle. Generally, it is two-wheeler and three-wheeler. It is BLDC. If it is four-wheeler, based on what efficiency you want, you can go with induction motor or PMS, permanent magnet synchronous motor. Then comes the battery pack sizing. Okay, once you know what is the motor that is used, we get an idea what is the voltage that goes on. So you will get an idea. You before that you should also know what is the energy that is required. Okay. Now that again can be computed from the tractive efforts. Okay, that energy that is required to drive a four-wheeler for 1 kilometer. Okay, that also needs to be computed. Why? Because that energy is coming from the battery. Okay, and that is required in computing the ampere hour rating of the battery, and also computing how much series and parallel stacks are required in battery. Okay, so knowing the motor voltage and knowing the the amount of energy required per kilometer. As a thumb rule, you can take it as 250 watt-hour per kilometer. This is generally done for a four-wheeler. But if you want to do detailed calculations, this energy required again comes from the tractive efforts and again from the drive cycles. Okay. And then we design the power electronics, where we design the inverter, because then we get to know what is the voltage rating of the motor. We also get to know what is the voltage rating of the battery. So we can actually size the inverter. Okay, if the motor is rated 20 kilowatts, generally we say 5 times the motor rating should be the inverter rating. And similarly, we can select the devices, power electronic devices that goes on to make this complete. Now, a few EV specs that I want to show you here. These are all the EVs that is being used in India. So we have Tata Nexon EV, where they use three-phase permanent magnet synchronous motor with a motor rating 95 kilowatts. They use lithium polymer batteries, and these are the battery specifications. Okay, Tesla is also coming up. They are also penetrating the Indian markets. Their specification is quite large. You would have seen. You can try comparing it. They use two motors with a total power rating of 615 kilowatts, which is very, very high. And that is the reason why they are able to achieve a very good acceleration. I think they can reach 0 to 100 kilometer per hour in a very little time. That figure was there in the internet. I forgot. But the main reason is because they use heavy motors. Okay, even the battery specification is rated with larger. If you look in other Indian market OEMs, you have Mahindra, where they use lithium ion in today's vehicles, and the power rating is somewhere 30 to 31 kilowatts. Okay, we have MG Motors, Morrison Garage. They have come up with ZS EV, where they use PMSM motors with 105 kilowatts. Okay, we have Benz, where they use around two motors, 300 kilowatts with a total rating of 600 kilowatts. So all these EVs are available today in Indian market. Okay, so as seen here, Either you have permanent magnet synchronous motors or induction motors. This is because here it is mainly four-wheeler segment. If you look into three-wheeler segment, you will see mostly it is either induction motor or BLDC motors. Okay, I'll just conclude with the challenges in EV. Well, the challenges in EV is mainly in batteries. If you look, see the gasoline or diesel, no, they are volumetric efficiency per liter. The energy efficiency, energy density. It's for per liter. It gives a very high, energy. But with the same thing, lithium ion, it's lagging way behind. Okay, so that is one major challenge in electric vehicle. That is again reflected in the slide where 1 gallon of petrol or diesel is equivalent to this much huge amount of lithium ion batteries. In other words, 2.7 kgs of petrol is no amount of energy that it can deliver. It is equivalent to 340 kgs of your lithium ion batteries. Okay, so problem is you cannot put this much weight into the vehicle, because more weight you put, the poor performance you get. So again, that's one major drawback and one major bottleneck why electric vehicle has become not being commercialized. Other challenges is slow charging time, battery life, high initial cost, limited range, grid integration, non-availability of grid, and consumer acceptance. These are the challenges, but I see that many people are working towards this, and I anticipate that in another 5-10 years, most of these challenges should be overcome. Okay, and by it is anticipated that by 2030, post 2030 onwards, electric vehicles would be penetrate more onto the roads. With that, I stop this my presentations. If these are some of the references. If there are any questions, please ask me. Sorry for making it a bit lengthy. I never anticipated it's going to be this lengthy. But otherwise, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Over to you, Vijay, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I'm really very thankful to you for covering the session for especially the mechanical engineers, like the battery management system, introduction to your EV power, and introduction to various motors. And really, when I was hello, I'm audible, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please tell me. Yes, sir. Please tell me.
Yeah. When I thought,
yes, sir.
sir, one my actually PC is going to hang. Yeah. When I decided to go for this FDP, hello.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
In that time, this I am thinking upon that how to organize the session, because see, what you say that it is very correct. There are more parts are towards like the control technology, motors,
Correct.
and many parts that we need to understand. Need much more time.
Yes.
I have seen the many FDP also are organized by various institute. Those are mainly concentrated on drives, control, motor. But then I think that we should first start with some introduction part to the mechanical engineers, so that they can understand, or they can take the part to initiate to work in the electric vehicle.
Correct.
And I really very happy that you have covered with the battery management system and introduction to EV powertrain. That is more important, and that means mechanical engineer can means give their participation in that work.
Correct.
Thank you very much, sir. And I'm open this forum to all the participants, professors, research scholar. If any query, to please ask to Prajop, sir. Hello.
Yes, sir. I think, sir, I can see in chat one question from Mr. Suraj Patil. So his question is, which type of battery will yield long life? Well, I would say that currently, lithium ion is the one which yields long life, because if you look into the battery that is available today, lithium ion has relatively long life compared to the other battery technology. But the issue is, still, today people, there are some OEMs where they give a guarantee of 5 years, but beyond 5 years is still a question mark. Okay, it is somewhere close to 5 years only. So that is the best batteries today. But it is anticipated we can have up to 8 to 10 years, but not beyond that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello. Any
Yes,
other
sir. Yeah.
professor?
Sir, I see another question from Mr. Sunil Kadam. Do you have any information about Ether Energy, that is price, charging station, etc.? Okay, well, I had, no, I was, as I said, I was fortunate enough to drive this scooter where I could see it in Bangalore. It was very popular when I was in Bangalore. I could see a lot of these Ether Energy. Price is, I think, 1.25 lakhs. I think, that was with all the subsidies, 1.25 lakhs. And charging station is, you can actually, they give a kit where you can connect it directly to its onboard charger and charge it. It was charging close to, I think, 5 to 6 hours it requires. That was the charging time, and the range was, I'm not remembering very clearly. I think it's 80 kilometers if I remember. And they have two modes. That is, you can operate in sports mode and economic mode, eco mode. Okay, in sports mode is you can drive at a very good acceleration and very good speed, but problem is you will consume a lot of power from the batteries. And in economic mode, no, you can drive it not very good acceleration, but reasonably good speed. And that is what I have experienced when I was driving this Ether Energy. I think it is one of the very good vehicle, considering that it was completely developed by, I think it was a startup, and the owners or whoever started up they were from, I think, they were from some of one of the IITs, and they have done a really good work in developing that vehicle. Okay. Yeah, I think Professor Mahesh has asked me if it's possible to share the PPT. Yes, sir, I'll definitely share it. Okay, there are some portions where maybe some photographs from where I've taken it from L&T, but otherwise I can share those slides. No issues.
Hello, sir. I would like to ask something.
Yeah, please, sir. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good
Sir,
afternoon.
basically, as you have said that the maximum life of a battery is about 5 to 8 years. And as we
Yeah,
can see that by the reviews of some Tesla owners that the capacity of the battery will degrade with time.
correct.
So, sir, will there be, it will, can it be possible to fill that gap? Because, sir, if you will manufacture a battery, you
Yeah.
will have to burn some fuel somewhere else, and there will be carbon emission. So we cannot say that this is a zero emission car.
Okay.
You
Okay.
are
Yeah. Yeah. I
so,
understood your
sir,
question, sir. Yeah.
yes.
Please go ahead. Yeah. Please go ahead.
So,
So
sir,
yeah.
I just want to ask you that if someone is purchasing that such, and you have taken the example of Tata Nexon. So suppose their company is saying that it will give up to 300 kilometers of mileage, but reviewers are saying that it will give about 200 to 210. Suppose after
Correct.
5 years it will give around 60 kilometers. So, sir, what will
Okay.
be use of that? Because expected life of a vehicle is about 15 years as per the RTO guidelines. If
Correct.
I'm
Correct.
not
Correct.
wrong, sir.
Yeah. Thanks, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your question. It's a very relevant question which you have asked. In fact, as when I've attended various forums, I've heard of these questions. Now, coming to your first part where you say that batteries life is limited. Yes, definitely it is limited. Now, no, as you said, the battery, its capacity degrades with time. Okay, that is, say, for example, if it is a 100 ampere hour battery, a fresh battery can store a charge of 100 ampere hour. Maybe with time, its capacity, say in 1 year, it would degrade by 90 ampere hour. Now in EV also we have standards. We say that battery, its life comes to an end when its capacity has degraded by 80%. Okay. For consumer electronic products, it's different. Okay. So that means this 5 years or 6 years or 7 years where the battery life comes to an end, its capacity has degraded only by 80%, not below that. Okay. So 80% degradation is not a very big degradation. That is, if a fresh battery, if it is able to give a range of 200 kilometers, after 5 years, it will give a range of 80% of 200 kilometers. That is theoretically, but practically maybe slightly less, maybe 70 or 60%, not much. So that is not a major problem, but major problem is that 5 to 7 years. As you said, as per the RTO guidelines, it should stay up for 15 years. And that is where the thing comes, because today people are ready to invest on high initial battery cost, but not again and again. And that is one of the major challenge in electric vehicles. It is still there. That problem still persists. And another thing is, as you said, the fossil fuel required to make batteries. Well, I should say that even you need fossil fuels even to make an IC engine. Okay, IC engine also to make, they need fossil fuels. So even if you want to have apple to apple comparison, even if you try to consider the amount of fossil fuels required to make batteries, in that case you should also consider the amount of fossil fuels required to make an IC engine. Okay, if you do all that calculation, still EV requires less fossil fuels compared to a conventional IC engine vehicle. That includes even the the energy that is required to transport the fossil fuels from the mining to refinery to the what you call power station, okay, where the electric power is generated. So considering all that, electric vehicle has an upper hand over IC engine. That is still there. Okay, but this problem of life is still a major roadblock to EV. And that is where chemistry people, the people who are working on materials, they are working on it. And maybe with time, as I said, there are some battery technology like solid state batteries which they promise to give a much better life. Maybe we can push it to 10 years. 15 years is still challenging. Even today they have achieved, just 10 years back the people were talking 3 to 5 years. Today people are speaking more than 5 years. So definitely tomorrow people will speak about reaching 10 years. So I hope I've answered it. Yes, there are challenges, but today the time is such that if you find a way where we can still reduce fossil fuels, then we should go with it. That is my take on it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are hoping the same. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, sir, I think there is a question from Mr. Dheeraj. So is there any opinion to increase the capacity of the battery by reducing its weight? Well, yes, so that question is, whether, in other words, the question is, can we have a much energy, better, energy or power density batteries? That is, can a battery for a given unit weight, can it give more energy density? Well, that is where I showed in one of the slides. We have lithium sulfur batteries. Now today, lithium ion batteries, its energy density is 200 watts per kg. If I'm not correct, I'm not sure about the figures. And lithium sulfur is anticipated to be somewhere close to 2000. Okay. So yes, there are options, but the issue is they are not being commercialized. It is still under research stage. I hope I have answered that question. Okay, and then there is another question from again Professor Mahesh sir. So his question is: engine would require fossil fuels, but maybe batteries would require rare earths. Yeah, sir, you're right. Batteries need some elements like lithium, which is still a problem, no doubt in that. But there are some batteries like sodium-ion batteries where you don't need rare earth. You just need sodium. Okay, for phosphorus ion batteries, again we have phosphorus. So I would say challenge is still there. The conventional lithium ion needs obviously lithium, but still people are looking for other alternatives. On the other hand, now you also have fuel cell vehicles where I think Toyota Mirai, I think I am not remembering the name of the vehicle. They have used fuel cell vehicles. And I think even when I was in IIT Mumbai, I could see there was a collaboration with Tata Motors to develop fuel cell vehicles in for bus. So still there are options.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, actually my laptop getting hang, so
Okay.
I joined through the mobile.
Sure,
So
sure.
thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, sir. I'm audible?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
tell me.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir, for nice presentation and nice session. I'm
Okay.
thankful to you from mechanical department and all the participants. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Sir,
Sure, sir.
one question from my side.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Please
sir.
tell me.
Yes, sir. I am faculty in this department,
Yes,
mechanical
sir.
GTI. Me and my son attending this session.
Yes, sir.
It's me a question about waste management. So I was puzzled.
Yeah.
So just handling this question to you, sir, please.
Yes, sir.
Sir, what will we do after the battery life gets dead? Like you said, it has life of 10 to 15 years. Then how will you manage the waste?
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. That waste management is also another challenge in electric vehicles. As I said, no, the definition of battery coming to end of life is when its capacity has degraded to 80%. Okay, so still, no, it can be used. Only thing its capacity has been degraded to 80%. Now, one proposal that people have put forward is maybe use it for home applications, like maybe for grid tied inverter, or maybe for some other consumer electronic product. That is one proposal where because what could be done, because obviously naturally this question would arise. You have so many lithium ion batteries, after it is used, what can it be done? And today people are trying to figure out how you can reuse these lithium ion batteries, and again to make a fresh lithium ion batteries. I'm not sure that people have figured out for lead acid, I guess, but for lithium ion still people are working on it. That is also another major issue with these things, because you will have to manage such a huge waste no, coming out from these vehicles. So what to do with these waste? No, one problem with lithium ion is its recycle value is also low, whereas compared to lead acid, recycle value is also there. You can actually recycle the lead acid value batteries, but lithium ion, that is also not there. So people are coming up with proposals. You have research papers, trying to come up with some solutions. I think with time there would be some concrete solutions on this.
Thank you, sir. He's a
Thank you.
school-going boy. He liked this session most. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's good to hear that
Yeah,
school children is also getting involved.
yeah, it's an
Uh,
emerging area, sir, and most of the people's now getting attracted towards the electric vehicle.
correct.
Yeah.
So
So
again, sir, Vijay sir, thank you so much. It is always, as I said, it's honor to. I've also been to Matunga and I've seen your college, and I've always
yeah,
seen VJTI always as a some institute which is one of the considered as one of the oldest institute.
yes, sir.
And so for such a reputed institute to be a resource person, I feel really honored and pleasure to be a resource person for this FTP. Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
sir.
this invitation.
Thank you now for nice present. Have a good day, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you
You
so
can,
much.
yeah, sir. You
Yeah,
can.
I'll be leaving, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Dear professors and the research scholar, now it's a 1:30, so we will start our session at 2:30, please. I am putting the link because of just my my computer is going hang. I did not able to put the link. Just wait 2 minutes. I will also put in the WhatsApp group.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Please join the session at 2:30. Thank you.